Good evening all and welcome to this special council of the 5th of June at the rise of, or just about at the rise of the Cabinet. Item 1, webcast introduction. This meeting is being webcast live to our website and will be available for repeated viewing after the meeting has ended. By continuing to attend this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to appearing in the webcast. I'd like to remind all of those participating in the meeting to use their microphone when they speak and to turn them off once they have finished talking. Item 2, apologies for absence. Councillor Guy.
Councillor Russell Perry.
Thank you very much. Any others? Councillor Griggs. You got that, Adam? Johnny, good. Okay. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to make a pertinent declaration at this time? Doesn't appear so. Item 4, referral from Cabinet Town Centre strategy. I assume you're moving that, Councillor Swords?
Chair, yep.
And seconded by Councillor Leppard. Councillor Swords, do you wish to introduce?
Well, I will briefly say I think we've extensively explored this at Cabinet and hopefully we've answered the questions. Whether you agree with the answers or not is a different matter. But obviously this is a significant proposal we are bringing forward. I will repeat again, you are not taking a decision on whether to buy this or not. We are not exercising the key decision to do that. We are asking for in-principle agreement to answer 2 questions. Do you wish to see this part of the town centre regenerated, and do you wish to stop the use of Terminus House in this way? I would hope that is something that all of us, regardless of our views of how we get there, is something that all of us can coalesce around, because I think it's the right thing to those questions to answer. And therefore, Chair, I'm more than happy to take further questions, but I hope we have reached a point that we may have answered those and that we could see unanimous support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Swords. Councillor Leppard, do you wish to speak at this time?
I think not. I'll reserve.
Thank you very much. I'll throw the out to the chamber, and Councillor Durkin stuck his hand up straight away, so I'll go straight to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. This is the decision, and I actually am very envious that you're able to make this decision at this present time. But it's all about, would you agree with me that we need to be much smarter and clearer around communication? The reason why I'm saying that, there was a gentleman in the audience who sat through the first part of the cabinet presentation who lives at Terminus House and wanted to ask questions, and I had to go over and say, unfortunately, you're not able to do that at this present time, but with help from Adam, we have explained what the due process is. But can we agree that we need to have a more easy to understand and an appreciated communication, that we don't set hairs running in different directions, both for the residents, the current residents in a Terminus House, but more importantly, the point that you've made, the other residents in Harlow who will be then therefore worried that the waiting list is going to get snowballed by other people. So can at least we can agree, would you agree, that we do need to be more, and I don't want to be critical because you have to say what you have to say on a video, but can we be a bit more careful about the language and how we communicate? And certainly the communication needs to be done in different levels, because there are people at Terminus House that do have different learning skills and abilities. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin. I'm minded that the leader of the council can probably take some note of these and answer in a minute before we then get questions for private session. So is there anyone else who wants to contribute at this time, either with question or a statement in the debate? No? Councillor Edwards?
Can you just repeat what you just said? Are we going into private session, I suppose?
That's why I was asking if anyone had anything to ask in open session before I give the leader of the council the chance to respond to Councillor Durkin and then take questions in private session. I want to give as much in open session with the members of the public as possible first. So what I'm saying, Councillor Edwards, is do you want to ask anything in open session at the moment?
And at the end of the going into private session, will we then come back and go back into open session again or not? And yet otherwise, there will be information that may or may not be, what's the word, clarified in
Yes.
in the private session.
Yes, we only
which
have to
in
enter
terms of
private
the
session
debate-
to ask for anything that is excluded, but I'll double check with the legal team here. Yeah, so we can enter private session and then come back out for further debate afterwards. Okay, I'm seeing Councillor Ingall's hand go up.
Ingall, Chair, there's only one of me. I actually welcome the purchase of Terminus House. I believe it's substandard accommodation, and I believe that the residents that have been housed there deserve better. And I think the leader of the council, in some of his comments, has said much the same, that the accommodation is substandard. Does he therefore regret being part of a council that chose to allow the owners of Carridon House to sponsor the Town Centre Awards in 2021?
Thank you, Councillor Ingle. Anyone else? Councillor Mullard-Toll?
Just for clarity, we can come back into open session and continue after going into private. Yeah. Thank you.
I won't take that as an intervention. Okay, there being no one else showing, I'll hand over to Councillor Sword to answer those questions, and then I'll move private session so that Councillor Edward, who's already given notice that he wants to ask stuff in private session, can start the question asking then. Councillor Swords.
Thank you. So on the first question about communication, I think we have a enormous job to do in communication generally and about resident participation and all of the things that Councillor Durkin mentioned. So I'm more than happy to do that and consider what we can do to that regard, particularly around this purchase. Obviously, as you said, the concern is not just from residents of Terminus House, but residents of the whole town and the challenges that brings. And you know, there were lots of comments made in the first session about that, which I've said I will reflect on. In response to Councillor Ingall's remarks, I mean, firstly, I am pleased that he welcomes the proposal at hand. I don't intend to exchange in back and forth, but I do find his line of questioning an interesting one, particularly of the role of this building when he sat in this seat and his actions towards it. And I don't think there's anything more I should say than that accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. Just to explain to the members of the public still present, we're going to now move, I'm going to move something formally that we will exclude you all. Members have already given an indication that they want to ask some specific questions that are excluded. But at the end of that, if you're still present and waiting around, we will make it clear that the debate has returned to non-private session and invite you back in. And so I must move now the following item be taken in private session on the grounds that it is likely to involve the disclosure of exempt information as specified under paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, if and so long as in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Paragraph 3 is information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Can I see that agreed, please? Thank you. It's glorious. Okay, Councillor Edwards, you've already given notice that you wanted to jump. Members of the public have rejoined us. Does anyone wish to further the debate? Councillor Mullard-Toll.
Chair, and I'll give credit to the leader of the council. Thank you for the way this has been conducted in cabinet and in full council. Look, personally, every time the leader has come with another bit of the town centre he wants to buy, this Labour group has supported it. If we had the opportunity when in power to do the same, I think we would have done the same and the opposition would have supported it. For far too long, we have been locked down to actually making significant change to the town centre because we were not the landlords. And actually, in the last few years, we have become the landlords of a very significant amount. It goes without saying, though, that this is a slightly different proposition to ones that we have brought before. We haven't brought a block that has been occupied by residents who have built lives in Harlow, have contributed to Harlow, have schools who have kids who go to Harlow schools. That does make this a different proposition. I have been reassured by the answers that Councillor Swords has given tonight, that this council will do everything in its power to secure and to work with the current landlord to secure new tenancies for the people living there. I hope he will go again and, in his summing up, will commit to that being as unaffecting to the residents who currently live there. They do have lives, they do have families, and they have contributed to Harlow and do make the fabric of Harlow a better place with them being here. We can all we all agree that the use of Terminus House is wrong in the current form, but that doesn't stop the residents who live there contributing and making a difference to the Harlow and the way it is. So I hope in his summing up he'll make that commitment again, but I will be supporting for this to go forward because I do think it makes Harlow better in the future and gives this council a better chance to redevelop the town centre so it can be something that the people of Harlow are proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Mullard-Toll. Councillor Griggs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I echo everything that was just said there, and I just wanted to go back very briefly to something that the leader said earlier, and that was that we were all elected to look after the town, regenerate the town. We're also all elected to represent the interests of the residents, and no matter whatever means those people came to Terminus House, they are Harlow residents, and we have a duty to them as well to make sure that they are happy with where they are offered as a new home, because that's what we're talking about. Terminus House is currently their home. It's not some little abstract island on which they're all living by default. They are there, they've made their lives there. They are part, as Stephen said, part of our fabric of our town now and contributing to it. So I unashamedly come back to the human element of this. We're not talking just about buying something in isolation, which has happened before, and it's really easy when there aren't human beings living in it, occupying it and calling it home. It is a different situation, and there is an obligation that we treat them in the way we'd expect to be treated ourselves, because as part of what you said earlier about being elected to represent and rebuild the town, we are there to look after the interests of the residents, and those people are residents of this town.
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. Councillor Durkin.
Also add businesses as well, because actually this is a thriving community, and to bring the pound into Harlow, we have to have the right facilities, the right shops, the right leisure, the right pleasure. The difficulty is at the moment the town centre is completely surrounded by empty blocks. Through no fault of our own, in a lot of ways, they have been left to rot. And whilst we are building and we are buying, we do need to take decisive action to actually bring a lot of those buildings back into the process. Otherwise, we do know, and businesses know, that they will lose customers, because anybody knows if you come into a town and you can't find anywhere to park, or you can't see where you're going, you just go somewhere else. You'll go to Chelmsford or others. So I do ask that we keep the current businesses engaged, informed and updated, and especially those that rely very heavily on the town centre, such as Princess Alexandra Hospital, in relation to the car parking and the safety moving backwards and forwards. Because at the moment, businesses see a derelict bus station. They see Terminus House, they go round the corner and they see others. Not of our making, but I hope we can take this opportunity, and as I said, I'm very envious that you're given this opportunity for this, but hopefully we can work together and keep businesses on board, because they are the lifeline of bringing people not only into the town, but actually spending in the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin. Councillor Dunn.
Chair, myself, Councillor Griggs, Councillor Durkin, Councillor Howard, who's absent, and the MP for Harlow and the villages were present at Redstone House a couple of weeks ago, just in order to give some small comfort to the residents that were, some of them who were in desperate states, who were losing their homes, being kicked out literally on the street. I say comfort, but it's you quickly realise that you can't give much comfort in that situation, I think. you know, as a relatively new parent, the sight of toys in bags, temporary bags, struck a particular chord with me. I think it's important for us to all work together to avoid that sort of scene. I think the landlord there showed what not to do, so we know what not to do. I do support the purchase of Terminus House, but we do, as Councillor Griggs has said, Councillor Monatold has said, need to have the human element front and centre in all that we do with this block and with this purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Charles?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to cover a few points that have been raised by members of the opposition and throughout the discussions that we've had both at Cabinet and Council. The first point is this, and I'm not the originator of this point, but I think it is really important, and I think it's a fair challenge that has been brought up before. And on the strategic side around the regeneration agenda, of course, the point has been made, how does this all knit together? And I think that the Cabinet, the leader and officers are conscious of that and how this all plays out with the rightful, exciting ambition to regenerate the town centre. That point is important. And at the end of the day, with the potential acquisition, and we're looking in principle at this, around Terminus House and Terminus Street, this is consistent with council policy and the support that the opposition have given to the regeneration agenda. Just quickly on governance, the reports that we have seen tonight, some in private session, which we cannot cover in public, but when you look at the value assurance on the Red Book valuation, you look at the approach around securing external legal advice, you look at the discussions and the mechanics laid out around the transaction, a lot of due diligence, more to come, has already been made in order to get to this point around the in-principle decision. Ultimately, this is a dynamic situation because of the commerciality of it. So I am personally comfortable with the delegations that have been set out because we have to react to the commercial reality often when these things happen. The most important point, and Councillor Dunn has touched on this, is the moral and public safety imperative of all of this. As the Cabinet Member for Public Protection, I have been involved in a number of discussions with the fire service and other agencies around our high-rise buildings in this town. If you don't think, Councillor Dunn, that we take seriously the moral imperative, that isn't the case. What I would say to him is for months, Cabinet members, the leader of this council and officers have been in close dialogue with the fire service. We've attended important briefings at Kelvedon for the Fire HQ to make sure that with buildings like Joseph Frank House, like Redstone House, and now with Terminus, we've taken into consideration the public safety risk in this, which is borne out in the report, and I welcome the comments that Councillor Stefan Mollard-Toll has said around Redstone House and the process that was taken by this council. But do not, under any circumstances, excuse the fact that the moral and public safety imperative is absolutely central to this and laid out in the report. And I'm glad that that has been discussed at length throughout. So we are taking that approach. I think it is the right decision, and I welcome the action that this council is taking. It is exciting, and I know that it has cross-party support.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to say on this matter is a bit above what we're talking about now. As the portfolio holder for housing, we've got over 1,000 people waiting for a property. We have over 300 in temporary accommodation. And I'm quite protective of those people. I want to see them in accommodation as quickly as we possibly can. House building needs to be a matter as a major item in Parliament. Over the past 35 years, all governments have failed totally the public in building new homes. The government says it wants to build 1.5 million in this Parliament, but nearly a year into it, it has built 0 houses up to yet. In some ways, it's not their fault, as we do not have the workforce to build them. Also, the costs are horrific. Unless we go into a Second World War house building programme, few will be built by this government or any future government unless we take house building as a really serious situation.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. What's your point of order?
There's a point of order. There's a point where I'm able to ask the Leader of the Council a question off any report. I'm allowed 2 questions.
Well, only on an ordinary meeting of the council or an ordinary meeting of a committee. This is not an ordinary meeting, and I think I've been very flexible in allowing Councillor Edwards 4 questions, yourself 3 questions.
Well, Councillor Edwards got 4. Can I just go? It's one very brief question.
No.
Have one of mine.
But who's counting? Yeah.
I think the meeting has been conducted in such a way that it's a shame that we're getting to the point where we won't allow one question.
Is it a technical question on the report?
There is a technical question.
On the report?
No, but...
I have a feeling, Councillor Muller-Toll, I have a feeling what you're trying to do is make a speech in response to Councillor Carter's speech and do it via the back door of a question.
7 words.
No. Councillor Leppard, there's no one else indicating. Do you wish to make your seconding speech? Yep, I've already asked Councillor Leppard, so you feel free. You want to give way? Councillor Edwards.
I just wanted to say, when this, hopefully this purchase will go ahead and lessons will have been learnt. Let's be very clear. Terminus House didn't just happen. Other properties across the town have been purchased in the way that previous offices were turned into units of accommodation. And that was done as deliberate government policy under the previous government. Now, all governments make mistakes, and I would hope that not just the previous government, but governments going forward, because this won't just be the case for Harlow. There will be similar examples in other parts of the country. And I would just hope that going forward, that governments of whichever colour learn from those mistakes in terms of it's about, if we are going to go down the notion of properties being used that were used for one thing, now being used for something else, or housing or accommodation and what have you, then that can't be done in an unregulated manner. It has to be done with the thought has to go into it, because if we are going to create units of accommodation, then they have to be decent units of accommodation. And I hope, and my sense across this chamber is that we are proud of Harlow. We are proud of its new town tradition in terms of building decent accommodation for people in the town, and going forward, then our message, I think, back to government, or whichever colour, is that the expectation, if that issues such as with Terminus House and others have to be avoided going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Morrison, you're indicating.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've heard from the men. Once again, we've heard from the men. Almost all of the men present, and here's one woman who keeps talking. I don't know if you've noticed that. Every now and then she just insists on saying things. I mentioned last week that I hadn't heard the term permitted development until I arrived in Harlow 4.5 years ago, and was taken aback, and that would be an understatement. Another term has been used, prior approval developments. I also understand that a change has been implemented by the government, that was last year, which means that local authorities can refuse, but on only certain grounds. There's a list of criteria. But that gives local authorities, or Harlow Council, a little bit more say in what happens, I hope. I would also like to comment on the discussion, the various contributions that have been made this evening. Overwhelmingly positive, constructive. The questions that have been asked have been couched in a respectful, encouraging way, friendly sometimes even. It is my distinct impression that Councillor Dunn was not criticising anybody. If anything, I have heard compliments with regard to how the Redstone building situation was dealt with by the council. Councillor Dunn, I think, was describing the anxiety experienced by those residents who were evicted and stating that he felt some empathy, maybe more strongly now that he's a dad. And that's understandable, I would have thought. It wasn't intended, I didn't think it was intended to be critical. And we managed, didn't we manage to stay more or less apolitical until Councillor Carter made his contribution, which I think is a bit of a pity. And I muttered under my breath, and we were doing so well. Most of those people who've spoken this evening have stressed the importance of working together for the good of Harlow. I may not have been here very long, but I feel I'm very pleased to be here, to now be a Harlow resident. Actually, I had been here for, I think it was a matter of months, when I was introduced at an event, I won't say who introduced me, with the words, and this is Kay Morrison, she's been here for a long time, and she's been doing a lot of campaigning. And I said, yes, but maybe it just feels like a long time to other people. I had been there for just a few months at that point. So in other words, I'm well and truly in Harlow and of Harlow, and I share the agenda, which is that we should do, all of us, our level best for the people of Harlow and those who are resident here for whatever length of time, doing our best to protect all of them, including the residents of Terminus House. Councillor Swords has assured us that he has their best interests at heart, that the council will do everything in its power to make sure, where it's possible, that no one becomes homeless. But that was the policy before we started talking about Terminus House. So we're all, I think, on the same page. We're all singing from the same hymn sheet. What are we saying? Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Leppard.
Thank you, Chair. I must confess tonight's meetings, both in Cabinet and in Council, have been conducted in a manner that I've found very positive, constructive, and I'm very glad that we seem to have some consensus amongst us on what is perhaps one of the most important acquisitions in the regeneration programme. And I hope that we can continue to work in this way as far as the town centre regeneration goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leppard. Councillor Carter, you were indicating that you've already spoken. The only way you can speak again is on a point of order. So I think what you're searching for is a point of personal explanation covered by 1513 of the standing orders. What is it you want to clarify?
All I wanted to say was I wasn't criticising either government. I mentioned that the governments over the last 35 years, and they've been both Labour, Conservative and a bit in between, we failed the public, and that's why we're in these positions today. We failed the public, all of us, by not building more houses. That was what I was trying to get across.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. I do agree. I think that was misunderstood, and I think that's an admissible personal explanation. There being no further indications of speeches, I'll return to the Leader of the Council for the right to reply.
Thank you, Chair. I shan't enter into such a love fest. It becomes horrendously uncomfortable. But I for the benefit of everyone, intend to sum up lots of what we have discussed. So the first thing I just want to address gently is this sort of suggestion that, you know, we're in this position of acquiring things by luck, you know, that they've just come to us and now we've got the opportunity to do that. I think if you take that view, you somewhat underestimate what the council has been doing and our staff have been doing for the last few years, and working day and night just not to get a town centre master plan in place, but put together the biggest regeneration programme of any district council in the country. That's not just by luck. To get to a point where private landowners are coming to us to dispose of their buildings is not just by luck. All of that stuff has not just happened because we've been here at the right time. It's happened through a heck of a lot of hard work and tough decisions and the right decisions at the right time. And just to address Terminus House specifically, and about some of the comments Councillor Morrison made, and just to make this really, really, really clear, the change that enabled permitted development this way took place in 2013 through a statutory instrument in Parliament. That has enabled some fantastic development. Pearson House on Edinburgh Way is a perfect example of permitted development done really well. Local authorities had the power to prevent that permitted development if they so wished, through an Article 4 directive. That's why there have been not a single permitted development of that nature since 2021 and 2022, when we introduced that Article 4 directive. So the council had the power to stop those things if it so wished to do so. The council didn't exercise that power. That's why we have Terminus House, because the council didn't exercise an Article 4 directive. So if I put it a slightly different way, if the council had the Article 4 directive in place, those permitted developments would not have been possible. That's why, for instance, by pure coincidence, there's not been a single permitted development since we put an Article 4 direction in place. If there had been one in place, it couldn't have happened without the council's agreement through planning permission. So that is something I want to be absolutely clear on, that this suggestion the council could not have prevented it. Of course, there is a question, can the council foresee such development? That's a totally different matter. But the council did have the power to prevent permitted development through an Article 4 directive. It did not exercise that power. That's why permitted development took place in that way. That's why it's not happened since. It's absolutely true, I'm afraid. However, looking forward, I think we have found absolute agreement that we are, everyone agrees that the use of that building is an abhorrent one. And as I've made clear many times tonight, the question to that regard is, do we want to stop that use? And I think we have reached a conclusion that we do, which I very much welcome. The second point is that of regeneration. And again, I think is a question that we've come to the conclusion on fairly neatly. So this is a significant moment for the council and for the town. This is a significant decision that is being taken, and one that is not taken lightly. Nor will the key decision be exercised lightly, I can assure you. But what this will do is enable us to deliver our promise, and I say our as a genuine collective, to the people of Harlow to rebuild this town. And that is what this decision allows us to continue to do, and therefore I genuinely thank people for their support to that regard.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. We return then to the recommendations, which are the referrals from Cabinet A to D. Can I see those in favour, please? Those against? And no abstentions. Thank you very much. Item 6 we've dealt with.